Hello there, music fans. You're watching Death by Unicorn, and this is my segment called What's New 2024, where I talk about new albums that came out in metal, rock, and prog. Today I'm going to be talking about 7 new albums that came out over the past week, and I'll talk about them in my order of preference, starting with one that I'm going to put in my near masterpiece tier, which is Azure and their album. It's either pronounced FIM, it's spelled FYM. Not sure if it's supposed to be pronounced FYM or FIM. This is the third album by this band from the UK. Azure has this great sound of progressive metal mixed with power metal, art rock, classical, jazz, and pop rock all in there. This I had never listened to an album by Azure before, but the early release single I heard ahead of time sounded so great, I became really interested in checking this out. Upon first listen, I was immediately hooked. I think fans of Hemina, a great progressive metal band from Australia, and Native Construct will like this band Azure, as they reminded me of those bands with their quirky but very powerful, clean vocals delivered with technical perfection, but also with character. And they also have the odd harsh vocal in here on the album for contrast. So after hearing this album, I immediately went back to check out their earlier albums based on this because I loved it so much. And their first 2 albums are also near masterpieces. This new album, FIM, features a nearly 17-minute prog epic track as the second last track on the album, called Trench of Nalu, which is one of the best prog epics of the year so far, if not the absolute best. It's probably my current favorite at the moment. And yeah, definitely check out Azure and FIM if you like progressive metal and progressive rock. It's a must hear. Next, I want to talk about Red Handed Denial. Well, the Azure's FIM came out on May 23rd, but all these other albums I'm going to talk about today came out on May 24th. Next up is Red Handed Denial and their album A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia. This is the 4th album by this Canadian band, and it's metalcore, kind of progressive metalcore, a little bit of djent sound in there. It's got post-hardcore influences, also some pop and electronic mixed in there. I love everything that Red Handed Denial has made before, and this is no exception. This band features Lauren Babick on vocals, and she is one of the most powerful female vocalists in metal today. She can sing like an angel, but also scream like a demon. The first single they released ahead of this album was called Parasite. That's the opening track on the album. It's a hardcore, djenty metalcore song with dissonant panic chords on the guitars, intense screen vocals, but it also has great clean vocal hooks. The second single I heard before this Red Handed Denial album was called One More Night, and that has an amazing clean vocal performance, perhaps Lauren's best on the album, that would rival the best pop or best American Idol style singers. But to me, it sounds even better than those types of singers because Lauren has that grit, that rasp, and that power, even when she's singing her clean vocal style rather than her scream vocal style. But that track, One More Night, to me, didn't really capture or display the whole power of the rest of the band, as it was more of a straightforward pop style track, so you don't really get as much of the guitar pyrotechnics and intense drumming. But the album continues to bounce back and forth between some songs and parts sounding like pop and some songs that are more like really hardcore, djenty metalcore, and then some songs are a mix of both of those extremes. There are even some parts in some songs that are more electronic and have industrial vibes. My favorite guitar playing on this album by Red Handed Denial was the riffing on Eat Glass, which is just a very fast and angry track. I love how they follow that track up with a soft acoustic song called I Hope You're Happy. I think fans of Spirit Box, Protest the Hero, Tesseract, Paramore, Sleep Token, I think fans of those bands will like this, and just general fans of metalcore, especially fans that like a bit more of a progressive and djent edge to their metalcore, they will like this album by Red Handed Denial. It sounds like a mix of all those things. So check out A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia. Next up, I want to talk about Teramaze and their album Eli, A Wonderful Fall from Grace. This is the 11th album by this Australian progressive metal band. I really enjoyed their last couple albums. They're a very melodic progressive metal band. They have some Christian themes in their lyrics, but it isn't too overt or blatant. So that hasn't bothered me too much with their lyrics. The vocal and instrumental performances from Teramaze are just amazing. This album continues their streak of excellent releases, and it's helping to propel them towards becoming one of my favorite bands. I expect that this album, along with the others I've mentioned so far in this video, will place well in my year-end top 50 albums of the year. The last track on here, A Wonderful Fall from Grace, is a prog epic that's 14 and a half minutes long, and it's just excellent. Oh yes, and for Red Handed Denial and Teramaze, I'm going to put them in my excellent tier, not quite my near masterpiece tier like Azure, but my excellent tier. And then I have one more album that I want to mention in my excellent tier, which is Capstan and the Mosaic. This is the third album by this American band, and it's post-hardcore, but it's in that progressive post-hardcore style with the fast guitars. It's very melodic. It's got pop punk and emo influences as well. And I love everything Capstan has done before. This is no exception. If you're a fan of Hail the Sun, Idola, and Dance Gavin Dance, I think you'll like this. It's that similar progressive, fast guitar, post-hardcore style with the emo and pop punk influences. This album by Capstan is just a really fun listen. There's a lot of variety and little surprises. Like there's a saxophone on the track, What You Want. That sounds interesting to you. Check out Capstan and their album, The Mosaic. Now we're going to get to my very good tier. So it's a little bit below near masterpiece, excellent. Now I've got very good. And here I want to talk about an EP by Toehider called X, or the Roman numeral 10, I think. This is part of his 12 EPs in 12 months project. Toehider is an Australian band. I guess it's more of like a one-person band by Michael Mills. And he is just a shapeshifter in terms of all the styles that he can play. So, as expected, the style on this EP is different from all the other EPs in this collection so far. This one is progressive doom metal with post-metal, sludge metal, and even his signature poppier rock influences in there. Really fun listen. I do kind of wish that Michael Mills focused on making a full-length album rather than all these EPs, because I think he's cranking out a lot of quantity now rather than the quality that I know he'd be capable of. I think if he had done all this writing and he had taken the best song on each EP and made it into an album, a full LP, it could have been one of his best. But instead, we get some hit or miss stuff in this 12 EPs in 12 months project. But that's okay. Whatever makes him happy. I love that he keeps creating so much music, and I will continue to follow everything that Toehider puts out. Next up, also my very good tier, I want to talk about an album by a band called Freak Kitchen called Everyone Gets Bloody. This is the 10th album by this Swedish band, and I guess it's kind of progressive metal. It's maybe a little bit more straightforward, just heavy metal, groovy metal, maybe even just hard rock at some points. There's nothing too harsh on here. It's not harsh metal or anything. This is a good, easier to digest metal album for people who aren't as into the screaming vocals. I never listened to an album by Freak Kitchen before this one, but I did hear an early release single and it sounded interesting, so I added this album to my list to listen to. On first listen of the album, the song that really stuck out to me was called Psycho Op. It's an awesome proggy song. The rhythms sound almost like Djent. The overall sound of the album, I'd say, is kind of like Rob Zombie meets Devin Townsend meets Pantera meets Meshuggah, because it's got some groove to it, a little bit of Djent, but not really the like 7-string super djenty sound, just those kind of odd times and weird syncopated rhythms. There's no harsh vocals. It's all clean, catchy, and accessible. Even with the use of odd time signatures and weird syncopated rhythms, it's all super digestible and easy to listen to. So if that sounds appealing to you, check out Freak Kitchen and their album Everyone Gets Bloody. Last, now we're at my good tier. So below very good, I have good. And for this one, I have Bring Me the Horizon with their album Post-Human Next Gen. And this is the 7th album by this band from the UK. And I'm on the fence about whether to call it a metalcore album or a pop rock album. I guess it's metalcore, but very much leaning towards pop and hard rock. It's got some alternative electronic influences as well. I'm not a big fan of Bring Me the Horizon, but they are a big name band, so I wanted to check this out just to hear what they are doing. And I've seen them live before. They were okay, but the reason I saw them live is because Thrice opened up, and Thrice stole the show for me. I thought Thrice was a lot better than Bring Me the Horizon. I prefer, when listening to Bring Me the Horizon, I prefer their earlier, heavier kind of deathcore and metalcore sound over the pop sound they've moved towards. This album still features some screaming and breakdowns, but there's also a lot of singing and pop and electronic parts. If you're a fan of bands like Architects and Sleep Token, I think you might like this release from Bring Me the Horizon. There are definitely some really catchy tracks that have hooks that will just get stuck in your head. Some of my favorite tracks on first listen were Kool-Aid, which has a great catchy chorus, great breakdown, great guitar playing, which is, it's nice when you hear great guitar playing in a Bring Me to the Horizon song, because you don't hear it too often in the modern Bring Me the Horizon tracks. There's a lot less emphasis on guitar, but Kool-Aid had some pretty cool stuff. And then there's another track called A Bullet with My Name on It, which features Under Oath, which I love. I love Under Oath. And then another track called Lost was also great. So definitely some great songs on here. Just a little hit or miss with the kind of sounds they're bringing in for my taste. Like, if a metalcore group, it's weird because Red Handed Denial also went pop and electronic, but for some reason when they do it, I like the sound of it, and they retained. Red Handed Denial is way heavier than Bring Me the Horizon. With like the newest Red Handed Denial album is just way heavier. I think if they can bring in the pop and electronic but maintain the heavy metalcore sound as well, I'd prefer it. This kind of sacrifices their metalcore sound for a pop sound, and I don't really like that as much when a band does that. It's still good. It's still well produced, well done, catchy songs, but I probably won't go back to this album, Post-Human Next Gen by Bring Me the Horizon. And that's it for my first impressions of these 7 albums that came out over the past week. Let me know what you think of these albums down below in the comments, and let me know if anything else came out recently that you'll think I'll enjoy. And stay tuned for next time. Peace out.